Hello, it's a very good morning. Thank you for joining us on ZBC News. I am Yvonne Mokondani, and the name of the program is Inside Out. Now, just last week, we were looking at the issue of child marriages, particularly looking at the issue of Memory Machaya, a 14-year-old Marange girl who died during childbirth. But it later turned out that her name is, in fact, Anna. And how did this just happen? Her parents concealed her identity. In fact, they provided fake identity documents just to sort of prove that she had attained the legal age of majority. Therefore, it was proper for them to have married her off. How evil. Anyway, last week we agreed that there is more to this problem of child marriages. We agreed that the problem is bigger. There is more to it than what meets the eye. For a very long time, girls have been abused under the guise of church doctrine, and obviously human rights have been violated. We also agreed last week that there is a missing link somewhere. So this is what we seek to ascertain on the program today. That's why we invited the chairperson of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Primary and Secondary Education, Honorable Priscilla. Honorable Priscilla, how are you, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
And we also have a legal practitioner, Lydia Mangachena. Lydia, good morning.
Good morning, Yvonne. How are you?
Very well. This is quite a delicate matter that we're dealing with, but we just want to find out from the both of you your general overview when we're talking about the issue of child marriages.
Well, the first point is I don't think there is anything like a child marriage.
So it's the term that is wrong.
It's the language that is wrong, and the language is wrong in that the moment you call it that, then you sanitize it, you normalize it. What it is they are pedophilias. They are people who are sexually abusing children. So we need to name them for what it is.
Yes.
Because when you say child and then you follow it up with marriage, what does it mean? It's like when you hear a lot of you media people, when you're speaking, you say, oh, and the husband is arrested. He's not a husband.
He's a pedophile.
He's a pedophile. You know, the criminal is in custody, which is what we say when somebody has stolen, when somebody has murdered, when somebody, you know, we call them by who they are. So that is the first problem, the issue around language, which normalizes, which sanitizes something that is fundamentally wrong.
Now, Lydia, she brings up an interesting the issue right here, the issue of the language that we use, particularly as the media guilty as charged. From a legal standpoint, what is your overview?
It's said that in 2021 we are still having such conversations of child marriages, given the fact that we have a constitution that is totally against child marriages. We have a section 81 which defines the child as someone who's below the age of 18, and we have section 78 which specifically says that only someone who's above the age of 18 can contract a marriage. So I would agree with Honorable when she says that we are sanitizing something that is fundamentally wrong, and it's said that we still have acts in place that are sanitizing something that is not in line with the Constitution. We have the Marriages Act.
But maybe before we get into that, we will get into the legal side of things a little later on. Let's look at the recent developments over the Marange issue. This girl started off as Memory. We were all going around, you know, advocating for justice for Memory. And then it turned out that no, she's not Memory. She's Anna Machaya. What do you have to say about those recent developments and how this matter just turned out?
Yeah, the first thing is that we have always known that there is a problem with Marange, and that's why some of us are also upset about it. You know, for the 20 or so years that I've been a feminist and activist, we have always known that there is a problem in Marange with the Marange Apostolic Faith in terms of abuse of girls. So that is one. So that is a bit disappointing that, like Lydia says, so many years later, we are still in this discussion. The second one about concealment speaks to our own society and what is going on. Because surely somebody knew. We've got a whole community, we've got a whole church, we've got a whole leadership, we have villagers, we have chiefs, somebody must have known that this conversation is on. So there was a closing in to protect something that is wrong. And I think it speaks to who we are as a people and the value that we place on our children.
And it's said that as a people we've been indoctrinated such that we cannot even tell between right and wrong. And this is where religion comes in, obviously during the socialization process, whatever it is that you believe in, that makes you into who you are. Lydia, again, do you have anything to add on pertaining these recent developments in Marange?
Their attempts to bring us memory instead of honor does not change anything. It does not make it right, even in terms of the law, even if it was memory. Given that we do not, in as much as we do not know the circumstances leading to the marriage of either memory or honor to Hombarume, still, in terms of the law, it does not make it right, because if it turns out that memory was given in marriage against a will, against a consent to this Hombarume man, it then means that there was a violation of the law. That is Section 94 of the Criminal Law and Codification Reform Act, as it criminalizes the pledging of any woman into marriage against her will. So their attempts to bring us memory does not sanitize anything. It still remains a crime as it is.
Now, Honorable, you bring up an issue that maybe people are not really comfortable to talk about. I don't know why. The issue that we know who the perpetrators are. You've mentioned a particular apostolic sect that is well known for marrying off girls at a young age. And Lydia said it is said that in 2021, we're still having such conversations, yet we know who the perpetrators are. Where's the missing link?
Well, it's in everything. It's in everyone, and all of us are complicit in this. Like I said, at a basic family level, Africans, by their very nature, are not a nuclear family. We are very broad. So there is nothing that happens in the Misairabwe family that is not known by the broader family context. So when those things are happening, it means there is the nuclear family and there is the broader family that is also complicit. We are people that, have church issues. We are people that have, whether you call them, as a community, basically as Africans, we are very social people. So you can't tell me that something can happen in a particular family and the broader community does not know anything about it. So that is the first level. Then the second level is the political will. As far as I'm concerned, we should be getting the police to get into that community. And they should have gotten into that community 20 years ago, because like I'm saying, it's not a new issue. It has been part of it. We have done petitions, some of us, as long as we were in the women's movement, went into politics and into parliament. So there clearly is a disjuncture between the political will and the community and all our families. We are just not valuing. If a cow is stolen in a family, it's not just and they are arrested immediately. You go to the magistrate court, you will hear so many of these cases, stock theft and things like that. And we have a mandatory sentencing, by the way, for stock theft, but we don't have mandatory sentencing for our children.
How does that work, Lydia? We have a mandatory sentencing in place for stock theft, but we're talking about human life here. We're talking about a child, a girl being abused, and we do not have anything set in terms of something that speaks to the abuse of that particular person.
Okay, we have a two-tier approach when it comes to sexual intercourse with minors. In terms of Section 70 of the Criminal Law and Codification Reform Act, if someone is charged with having sexual intercourse with a minor, this is a minor who's below the age of 16. And it turns out that if there was consent to that act, and then that person is charged with having sexual intercourse with a minor, and it has a lesser sentence. But if there was no consent, and then it now becomes a charge of rape. So we do not have mandatory sentencing, as we have a two-step approach to cases involving sexual intercourse with a minor.
Now, having said that, what then are the sticking points in the enactment of laws that protect children from such views, from such vices, rather?
The sticking point at this juncture is the alignment of the laws to the Constitution. we are supposed to be having our laws aligned to criminalize any sexual activity with anyone who's below the age of 18, not having this two-step approach saying that if someone is below the age of 16, the legislature, the constitution is very clear on that one. A minor is someone who is below the age of 18. So we cannot be talking of a minor who is below the age of 16 in terms of another act, whilst there is the Supreme Law which is clearly stating that a minor is someone who is below the age of 18. So I think the main sticking point is law alignment, and the process seems to be taking forever.
Why is the process taking forever? When are we going to see an enactment, an alignment of these laws?
Well, the first thing is that some of us have actually argued that when we had the Mzuru course, which actually got us to get a definitive position around what our law is, automatically we should, because the Mzuru case was very clear, like Lydia says, it actually then said certain laws have to be changed or have to be aligned, and that's where the whole debate around, the amendment of the Marriage Act. And we did a lot around it. As far as the National Assembly is concerned, we did what we needed to do. The sticking point got when it got to Senate, because then Senate has held on to that legislation on the basis of the Lobola conversation. You remember the issue that the Senate is saying you cannot proceed for customary marriage. You can't proceed to the customary marriage without having paid Lobola. So that's where it is from a technical point of view. We've been having conversations with the Minister of Justice, because there are two ways of dealing with that. When you have a difference between the National Assembly and the Senate, you can do a certificate and send it to the President and indicate that there are differences, or you can try and work out some kind of compromise and bring it back to the National Assembly. So we are hoping that the Minister of Justice, certainly before we close, is going to bring it to the National Assembly so we can create a finalization around that particular act. But my argument is that when the Supreme Law has stated, it means that any law that is contrary to the Supreme Law is invalid. So really, in my opinion, the High Court, as the upper guardian, should really be making sure that whatever it is that was agreed to, in as far as the Constitutional Court is concerned, and insofar as the Constitution is concerned, should really be done. So we should not be having that debate, in my opinion.
And I guess this is where the problem comes in, and this is where we get people getting very angry, because you mentioned all these technicalities that do not seem to be understood by the ordinary person at home. Because if my child has been abused, if my sister has been abused, what I need is legal action. I want justice. That is all that I want. So maybe are people justified to then think that, okay, fine, maybe our legislators or whoever it is not taking this issue seriously?
No, I think, yeah, there is a part. I mean, I can speak for legislatures. We fought for this. We continue to push for it. But there are also issues like the issue that Lydia raised, where you have a situation where in this country, the age of consent to sex really is at 12. And I know people never understand this.
It's at 12?
It's at 12, because irrebutability of consent only is 12 to from 12 to below. The moment somebody is above 12, then you are charged with the charge that you are talking about, sex with a minor. So as long as you do not have that sorted out, where you we either agree as a country to say when you have sex with anyone under the age of 18, the issue around consent is irrelevant. But as long as there is something where you say irrebutability of consent is only at a particular age, then you have a problem.
We are interrogating the case, the issue of early marriages here on Inside Out, live on ZBC News, where we're joined by Honorable Priscilla Misairambi Mshonga and Lydia, who is a legal practitioner, just to help us unpack this matter. Also, via Skype, we're joined by Rev Taylor Nyanita, who is from the religious sector, Christianity, to just give us his view, because the religious sect stands guilty when we're looking at this issue, particularly to do with the Marange girl. Reverend, good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. And thank you for inviting me.
It is a pleasure having you with us. Yeah. Now, to start off, the church, especially the apostolic sect, have been responsible for early marriages. What is your take? How does religion work?
The religion is quite clear. If you are a Christian and you believe in the Bible, I'll just extract from Romans 18, verse 1. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Then verse 2, consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. That's the reading that I've extracted, but I also want to go further and link it with the Constitution, which is the subject that we are discussing. And already Honorable Mr. Rambu has already spoken to it. The legal practitioner has already spoken to. But I just want to refer to the Constitution on chapter 1, section 2, subsection 1. It says the Constitution is the supreme law of Zimbabwe, and any law, practice, customary or conduct inconsistent with it is invalid to the extent of the inconsistency. Right. So any practice that we do that is not in line with the law is not right. And child marriages, as we want to label them, are not right. And I agree with Honorable Mr. Rambui to say we should not even be saying child marriages. It's not even right. We are sanitizing something that is evil, that is bad. So any religious practice which practice in Zimbabwe has to confine itself within the laws of the land. So anything outside that is illegal, is criminal, and hence the arrest that has happened.
But Reverend, having said that, having quoted scripture and all, yes, we understand. But then the point, the fact on the ground is this church, to a larger extent, still stands guilty. The church is supposed to be protecting children. The church is supposed to be protecting us. The church is supposed to be standing that which is right, as you've quoted rightfully from the scriptures. What then needs to be done from your own point of view as a religious leader? Where are you falling short? Why are we still having children being married off in the church in the name of religion, if we so much believe in the word of God and that it should guide us properly in the way that we should go?
It's to me, it's simple, is to call the leaders of that particular church and interrogate to say, why are child marriages happening within the church? Because that church is a leadership, is authority. People are following a church which has leaders, and the state has a responsibility to call those leaders and engage them over the matter. This is what I believe, because as a church, they also have laws that govern. So within their laws, if it allows child marriages, then it should be struck off their constitution.
And do you believe that, I know that you don't belong to this particular sect that we're talking about, but do you believe that as a church you're doing enough? Do you believe that you're doing enough in as far as leading the conversation is concerned, and as far as advocating for change pertaining to the matter of early marriages is concerned? Are you doing enough? Are you folding your hands and just looking and saying, okay, fine, it's going to come to an end, or I'm not part of that particular sect that is involved in it? Are you doing anything to actually make sure that this social ill or this plague really comes to an end?
The churches in Zimbabwe have what I call councils or associations. You know, the Zimbabwe Council of Churches. You know, in the apostolic sector there is what is called UDASIZA, right? And UDASIZA is a collective of apostolic sect which has also agreed clearly that no child marriages should happen among their members. But what I'm not sure is this particular religious sect part of Udasisa? But the broader of the apostolic sects belong to Udasisa, and they've come out clearly to say no child marriages. So from a church point, I think there is a lot of work that is going on, but it's now either the attitude of leaders, or we may need political intervention to say no to this, because someone has to come out and state the position and ensure that it does not happen.
Reverend Nyanita, thank you very much for giving us that insight from a religious perspective. We hope to link up with you again, hopefully next week, as we continue with this topical conversation on early marriages. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, listeners.
And now we move forward with the conversation here in the studio. Honorable, there's a lot of, saying, okay, it's not us, there's this council of churches that does these and all that. I appreciate the Reverend and what he said, but do you think that the church is taking responsibility when it comes to this issue?
Certainly not. I think the church should be leading the charge. It is one of their own. It doesn't matter that they may not be part of the association, but if it is one of your own, we should be getting a huge movement from the church. I would have expected that the elders of the church would have organized themselves. They would have gone to Marange by now. They would have said, we are brothers and sisters. We are going to sit down with you and we are going to talk about it and understand where we're coming from. So I'm disappointed in the church personally. I think they should be doing more. I think they should be speaking out. Their voices are better heard than our voices in this particular instance.
And it can only work when we speak with one voice. Now, Lydia, let's look at the legal side of it. The Guardianship of Minors Amendment Bill was read for the second time in Parliament yesterday. Can you just give us a brief summary of what it entails?
I will speak only relating to the conversation that we are having today, and this is particularly in relation to Section 4 of the Guardianship of Minors Act.
Okay.
In terms of that section, currently a parent or a legal guardian can consent to the marriage of a minor child, and this is also in support of Section 22 of the Marriages Act, which says that a legal guardian or a parent of a minor child can consent to the marriage of a minor child. So the amendment bill now took out that particular provision where a legal guardian or a parent can consent to the marriage of a minor child. So it follows that in terms of the new Guardianship of Minors Act, when it now comes into force, this bill, when it now comes into the force of law, no parent can now consent to the marriage of a minor child, and this is quite progressive. It now means that should it come into law, hopefully it criminalizes not just ousters, but criminalizes any parent who consents to the marriage of a minor child. It now remains for the Marriages Act to be also amended to ouster that provision, which says that a parent or a legal guardian of a minor child can consent to the marriage of a minor child.
Now, Honorable, having been on the forefront for quite a long time, is it too early for us to start celebrating?
No, I think we need to celebrate any movement towards changing. Any progressive movements, like Lydia said, should be celebrated. But the caution is to say, like, and I think Lydia referred to this, in the criminal, in the CPA, you find that the pledging of a child is criminalized already.
Okay.
And yet we are still finding that happening. So there is the point in which you make the law, but there is the point in which you implement that law. And you were right in saying people know that there's a law, but they're sitting here and saying, I don't want all these technicalities.
Yes.
I just want you, if my child is abused, I want somebody to do something about it.
And we do not want the law to be selective as well.
Exactly. So we need to be bringing together all the other aspects that are there. The law is there, the implementers are there, and the courts should begin to use those laws to ensure that they are giving deterrent sentences instead of community service sentences that they are giving right now.
So if this bill passes, do you think it will be enough to protect children from child marriages?
It's not just about the bill itself only. There is a need for a provision to criminalize the actual act of giving a child in marriage who is below the age of 18. And it's not just a Guardianship of Minors Act that needs attention only. It's also the Marriages Act, it's also the Children's Act, which at this stage still defines a child as someone who's below the age of 16. It's also the Criminal Law Code Act. It has to criminalize the actual act of contracting a marriage, because it only criminalizes the pledging, but it does not criminalize the contracting of the marriage itself. So there is a lot that still needs to be done. It's not just the Guardianship of Minors Act, it's a whole lot of other laws that needs to be aligned to bring to book perpetrators who will be found wanting. Because the challenge is the courts and the police, they only act in accordance with the laws that they have at hand. So in order for one to be criminally liable, it has to be spelled out in the criminal law code. So long as it is not spelled out in the criminal law code, so long as there is no provision for a criminal sanction, and then the courts, their hands remain tied. They cannot pass a sentence, they cannot bring a charge in the absence of a sanction in terms of a valid act.
This is a conversation that I'm sure we can have for the whole day. But Honorable, as we conclude, just in brief, where do we go from here?
I think the Constitution is clear. And like what Lydia is saying, I actually think that anything that is inconsistent with the Constitution is null and void. We should be using what we have to set the stage for ensuring that no one continues, and we change the language of child marriages.
Let's use what we have to make sure that we protect our children. Let's change our language. There is nothing such as child marriages, because a child cannot enter into any contractual obligation, let alone marriage. So it is early marriages. Let us call it out for what it is. And this is a call to all the religious leaders out there, to all religious people out there, whether you're from the Marange Apostolic sect, Joan Masowe, Anglican, Roman Catholic. If you know that whatever it is that you're doing is for the detriment of our children, you need to stop, and you need to stop it now. Let us protect our children, let us take care of them, and let us make sure that they are not abused in the name of the church or anything else. You have been watching Inside Out here on ZBC News. I am Yvonne Mukondani. Until next week, have a pleasant viewing.